Welcome to episode 44 of the GameSpot After Dark podcast, GameSpot's official chill hype vibe podcast. I am Tamor Hussain, joined by Michael Haim.
Yo, what up?
Jordan Ramey.
Hello.
And Alessandro Falari.
Hi.
How's it going, everyone?
Doing the best we can in these times, Dan. Doing the best we can.
I think the appropriate response is like a really deep inhale and then a really long exhale. I think that captures every kind of range of emotion necessary for now. So we usually have a segment on the podcast, if anyone is new to it, called the Chris from Dayton, Ohio segment. Now, it's usually for newcomers. Alessandro, this is your first time appearing on this podcast, so you'll have to do this. Jordan, you have been on this podcast, but I don't think the Chris from Dayton, Ohio segment existed.
I must say, I think the last time I was on, the podcast number was still in the single digits. So I want to say
very early. So we'll start with Jordan, and the Chris from Dayton, Ohio segment is effectively a summation of who you are, what you do, and what you like. So let us know what you're into.
Well, I am one of the associate editors on the news team at GameSpot, so you might not necessarily see me around all that often. I'm kind of like mixed into the normal news coverage, but if you pay attention to the anime and Apex Legends stuff on the website, those are kind of like my beats, and whenever something Xbox related comes up, I usually touch it in some capacity because I'm an Xbox boy. I have a PlayStation, I have a Switch, but I am one of those like final diehards in the office who still plays most of their games on Xbox. And I assume that's everything that you're looking for. like how much information? Are we talking like life story? Do you want like when I was first walking, what my first word was? Like,
what would you say are your favorite games? Like top 3 favorite games of all time?
Top 3 favorite games would be Titanfall 2, Mass Effect 2, and
damn.
Oh God, this is hard.
Really think
got one more, man.
You got one more.
I am going to go. Let's just complete the pattern here. Assassin's Creed 2, all twos all around.
Wow,
cool. Great sequels.
Okay, yeah. Alessandro, who are you? What do you do here? What do you like? What are your 3 favorite games of all time?
Cool. Hi, I'm Alessandro. Like Tamor said, this is my first time being on. I'm an editor at GameSpot. I basically do a little bit of everything. I used to do a lot of traveling before we, all went into quarantine. I'm basically the guy that helps, sort of coordinate upcoming opportunities and, I basically keep everyone in the loop for what's happening or what will happen. So, I basically write features. I occasionally write news. I've been in the industry for about 9 years this year, actually. And actually, a few days ago was my 3rd year at GameSpot. So, it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
Top 3 games. Unless I missed a question there.
No. Top 3 games.
The original Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy 12, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Nice.
Wow.
Those are 3 solid games.
That Final Fantasy 12, I did not know that about you.
Michael sees you in a whole new light.
Thought I knew you.
Well, it's a great Final Fantasy game. Honestly, it deserves more credit than it actually got. I'm actually glad that Zodiac Age edition came out because I think more people were sort of giving it its due. So
yeah, it's easily the best Star Wars game ever created.
That's fair.
That's how I see it. Like easily. If you haven't played 12, Zodiac Age on Switch is pretty much essential. It's amazing.
It's got fast forward. More RPGs need fast forward.
They also put in an update where you can reset your classes, which is a big thing. So I'm actually interested in doing like a revisit on that game. So
Yeah, I'm like part of the way through it, and it's fantastic. All right, speaking of what we're playing, Michael Hyam, what have you been playing?
I am reporting in on the latest games to hit video game worlds. So first thing I'll probably talk about is Valorant. I'm in the process of reviewing Valorant. It just launched on Tuesday, and I played a lot of the betas, and it was a pretty known quantity at that point, and not much has changed. Like the core game is still pretty much what you play in the beta. Things have been refined, obviously. The bug fixes, the tweaks, the patch notes log is huge, and a lot of smaller things to kind of round out the game. But I mean, I feel pretty much the same way as I did in the beta. There's a new map that is frequently put into the rotation, and it's pretty much your standard like CS:GO style map. Overall, Valorant is very much like your CS:GO style game with hero powers and stuff like that. And that's all to say that it's very good. Like the thing about Valorant is that yes, it's emulating the CS formula very much with very heavy Overwatch tones. But the thing I like about it is that it executes it extremely well. It's like really tight. And that's not an easy thing to pull off because CS at its core is a very precise game in terms of balance and how you play and how you're supposed to play the game to succeed is a very, it's a very specific way to play those styles of games. And Valorant does it really well. I'm not gonna say it like breaks new ground or anything because it is very much borrowing from 3 separate games. It's just a really well done mishmash of those things. But I'm gonna be giving it a lot more time, come up with new strategies, try out all the different agents as they call them, not heroes, agents. Because I mainly play like 3 different ones, but there's overall I think 11 right now, and that's a lot of work before I have final thoughts. But I'm working on putting up a review in progress. Maybe by the time this podcast goes up or a little bit later, but it's definitely, I'm trying to hit this weekend to have a review in progress. So yeah, hit me up if you want to know about Valorant. Are y'all curious about Valorant at all? Or?
It's too hard for me. I can't play Valorant.
Yeah,
I mean, like I love CS. I played. It's probably still the game I put the most amount of hours into. So I played Valorant at beta, and I really enjoyed what I played. There was parts of it that I felt like required a little more polish, if you know what I mean. Like some of the sound effects, some of the visual kind of stuff. Like whenever an enemy uses like that fog type ability that covers an area, it just looks like someone's dumped like a turd on the map, and
it's spinning.
Yeah, and it looks it's rotating. Yeah. Someone's dumped it and then stirring it. And you're like, oh,
yeah. That's the one thing I'll say about Valorant is that its presentation is severely lacking. Like you go from Overwatch to Valorant, from Apex to like any other service style shooter that has hero types in them. Valorant is severely lacking. Like I go into Apex and I'm like excited about the character select screen. Yes. That like exactly. Like you buy intro animations for characters and your title cards and their poses and all that stuff. And that's a very exciting part. Like, I can't wait to like deck out Crypto and like the dopest K-pop jacket, like duotone jackets and shit like that. That's exciting. Valorant's got none of that. The characters, it's weird. I feel like it's like, yes, it has a diverse roster, but their personalities are so like not there that it kind of doesn't matter in a way. And that's unfortunate, but these games are in the state right now. That's how I feel. But of course, these games are always evolving. But yeah, like what Tam was saying about like the graphical presentation, like, yeah, this is made to be a low spec game that can play on old computers. But even if you crank everything up to high settings, like it doesn't look all that different. And it looks bland and a bit like rough, but it works is what I'll say. So
yeah. Functional, if not very pretty.
Very functional. But other than that, speaking of dated games that look dated, also Phantasy Star Online 2, I got, PSL2 is fun. It's good. I'm also in the process of reviewing that. That's a little bit up in the air in terms of timing for that. I need to talk to Callie about that.
Bro, this is like your third review, like back to back or something like that.
That's like fourth or fifth or something.
Jeez.
I love reviewing games, man. But yeah, PSO2 it is messy. That game is very messy.
It's
like
old.
It's old, but it's like the quality of life and UI stuff has not changed at all. Like it's been around for 10 years and that shit has not been touched for 10 years. So you go into the game and you're like, what am I supposed to click on? How do I click on it? How do I access that menu? What is this quest? How do I can't join a party until before I take a quest, and I can't go. Like there's so many things about PSO2 that you would expect to be refined in a game that comes out in 2020, but this being like props to it for being very true to what it was in 2010. They're just like, hey, here's a localized version of what that was. It's fun though. I'll say that much. But I
think PSO2 is, if anything, a fantastic example, or like a kind of something to have there that shows you how far MMOs have come. Like if you want to see, like, you know, that's a good way to do it. Play that game and then play literally any modern.
Big facts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still fun at its core, but it's dated in so many ways. But there is this like Dreamcast era Sega charm to it. I think a lot of it has to do with the presentation style and like the character models, the way the environments look feel like a very high res detailed version of a Dreamcast era game. I mean, that's also because like Phantasy Star Online 1 is also of that time. So that makes sense. There are a lot of cool things around the edges, but I think I need to spend a lot more time in PSO2 to kind of figure that out, more so than Valorant at this point. So I'm going to be doing that all through the weekend. And there's another MMO that I'm going to be playing over the weekend for Play for All that I mean, I'm not going to talk about it just because, you know, that stuff is still in works. But man, I got a lot of video games, man.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. But
so
bless you for making the attempt.
Trying out here, man.
Valorant effort.
No.
No puns for you, bro.
Jordan, what you been playing or doing?
I'm always playing Apex. I'm literally never stopping playing Apex. I think like there was a brief period in season 1 where I stopped playing because there was just no new content coming out. But about a week before season 2 started in July of last year, I basically just made sure that I played like an hour or two every single day, and that's my life. I just play Apex Legends, and I keep bugging you, Tam, and Chris to write about Apex Legends.
Hey, we're ranking the numbers, man.
Yeah,
bro, I love Apex Legends so much. It's like one of the most proudly diverse games ever. Like going back to your whole like character thing, how a lot of hero shooters are kind of iffy and stuff like that. Apex Legends has such good heroes and such a diverse roster of them. And like, how many games out there can you just point to that have a roster like this outside of like Overwatch, because Overwatch did it first?
It feels very natural to me. Like I think I like we said that in the 2019 Game of the Year discussions, is that like, yeah, it's like Gibraltar's my boy, Crypto's my boy. You know, there's a lot of women of color included in there too, but it feels natural. Like, oh shit, like y'all are doing it right. I think there's some conversations around Loba's design though. I think a lot of Latinx folks are chiming in on the authenticity, but also the like we see a lot of the like that.
We've seen ourselves in this way many times in media before. Like it's I don't know, it's not like a stereotypical example of the what a Puerto Rican, but
yeah.
it
says
media has portrayed Puerto Rican women like this a lot.
It says a lot that you can point out at least one other character who is pretty much the same. Like when she showed up, pretty much everyone who plays Overwatch went, that's Sombra,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Like,
And also speaking of Valorant too, just added a new character. I forgot what her name is. Reyna. And
the vampire lady.
Yeah, and everyone's like, that's Sombra, but it, like they're continually playing into this like this sort of criminal-esque Latino woman, and it's like, all right, we've been down this road before. We can be a little bit more creative in how we represent Latino women in games, but yeah, Apex, go off.
and then you're playing Rocket League.
I am. I feel really bad because Peter was always trying to get me to play Rocket League with him and Rob, like before he left. And sometimes I would play, and sometimes be like, no, I want to play more Apex. And I have no idea why, but like 2 weeks ago, I was just thinking, Rocket League is pretty fun. I should try playing that game again. And I've just been playing it for like a good hour, like every single day. I'm like, oh, I'm back in Rocket League now. Like I took a 1.5-year break, and now I'm just back in it for whatever reason. And what a stupidly simple game that is so addictive to play.
Yeah, it is pretty fantastic. I need to get back into it. I played we played in a tournament, me, Lucy, and Dave Jewett in the UK, and then that was the last time I played it. Like, I put so much energy into getting good for a tournament, and then once I was done, I was like, oh, not playing this game anymore.
5 years running, man. Rocket League's been out there for about 5 years at this point. And Jordan's out there.
I think I'm just like, Michael, you're telling me all the time I gotta play Persona. Jake's all the time telling me that I gotta play Witcher 3, and I need a break from those really long story-driven games. Like I just want the I want the multiplayer games where like I play a match and it's just done in like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm like, cool, that was awesome. I'm gonna do that like 1 or 2 more times, and then I'm done for the day. Like, I can't do that if I play Persona 5 Royal. Like,
you said that. What did you say? It's like, you don't have, or you need to take a break from playing long story-driven games, bro. You need to just do it. It's rewarding. You'll be rewarded. Trust me.
I know. I have it. It's on my PS4. It's downloaded. I bought it. It's there. I just
You'll love it. You'll love it.
Man. No, I feel you though. Like having those palate cleanser type games. Ever since I got Project Diva Hatsune Miku on Switch, I just look at my Switch and I pick it up and I'm like, I want to play a couple songs, then play 5 songs, then play 10 songs, then play 20 songs. And I'm like, wow, now I don't have time to play the game that I was supposed to be playing. So I understand, man.
Yeah.
Alessandro, what are you currently playing?
I've actually gone for a revisit to Assassin's Creed Origins. Like, I actually reviewed the game like almost 3 years ago now, and as my first time coming back to it, I've been playing on PC, and it's. I feel like I feel like I like the game a lot more now than I did before. Like, mostly because just how much like the setting itself is just so fantastic, and I still think it's one of the best like achievements of the series, Assassin's Creed. Like, just so much level of detail and craft went into it, and I'm just like really blown away. It's still, even now, like 3 years later, I'm still blown away by that setting. And I still feel a little weird about how funky like the action RPG elements are in that game, especially considering you can't like insta kill someone with the hidden blade like at the beginning once you get it. So I'm still sort of wrestling with it in some cases, but I mean, that setting, man, is just so good, man.
Well, our friend Jordan might have a little hack for people.
I've been telling you, people, just get the second DLC, and then you can just push by.
I'm still very early on,
and you don't have to grind at all.
I'm still very early on, but I remember Jordan mentioning that. I'm like, I gotta do this because like this is just sort of like becoming untenable. Like just trying to basically do the same like sort of actions you would do in other Assassin's Creed games, but you sort of like hit the wall of like, well, your character doesn't have this particular stat, or you don't have this particular item or equipment. So I'm like, all right, like I'm just looking forward to that moment where I can actually do the the DLC missions and sort of like just skip to that, to get that stuff out of the way. So
Yeah. Are you finding yourself like consistently stopping and taking screenshots? Because I also started, like a lot of people started Assassin's Creed Origins again, and I put a lot of time into the game just recently, and a lot of that time is spent taking screenshots.
I actually did that when I was reviewing the game. Like I spent so much time, sort of like taking screenshots using that photo mode. Like it's, I mean, just even now on PC, it looks even better than it did like before. So I like just climbing up and just finding like a good spot for Bayek to sort of perch himself on. Just sort of like I can zoom out the camera and just get a good angle. And like it's great. Like again, that setting is just so fantastic. And also, Bayek is such a great character.
Oh, Bayek and Aya are they be smashing all the time. Like like their dynamic is it feels genuine in a way that like, because every time you come to her and you're like, okay, like we got to do this mission, we got to assassinate this one fool, and then they're like, all right, goodbye, my love, and then it's like, okay, we'll smash real quick, and then we're gonna assassinate.
Kill
them.
tomorrow,
like,
smash tonight.
Yeah, it's like, damn, y'all. Okay,
they're like ride or die with each other. Like they're like when
really
I think of like good video game couple, like it's Bayek and Aya. Like
definitely.
Well, if you hopefully if things
segue.
So if things go our way, we'll have the voices of Bayek and Aya as part of GameSpot's Play for All. They were originally supposed to be tomorrow, but due to some circumstances, we've had to shift it, and we're currently rearranging. So fingers crossed we'll have them involved. But yeah, you're also playing, Alessandro, Streets of Rage 4?
I am. I've beaten the game like 5 times already, but I'm just taking control of each character. Like, the game really isn't that long, so it's not like too much of like a time sink, but I mean, the game just feels so good. Like, the guys making it, Lizard Cube and Guard Crush, like they just did a great job of not only respecting the original games, like particularly Streets of Rage 2, which the game is sort of framed, like modeled after, and on a mechanical level, but also just the insane like sort of art style. Like, I know people are a little bummed out, like it's not, sort of the sprite work, like, Genesis style sprite work, but it is, I mean, just the game just has so much personality to it. And then like one of my favorite levels in the game is where you sort of like fight through like an art gallery that's like, sort of like half destroyed, and like, you see like, really vivid like pop art sort of like coming like from the background, like, it's, and like a lot of neon lights sort of illuminating the battles and stuff, and it's a really cool game. Like, it's easily like one of my top 10 favorites of this year. So I was like, every time we previewed it like a couple times throughout its before its release, and every time we played it at like PAX and stuff, we were like, damn, that's pretty good. It turns out like it's pretty good, damn good. We actually got to play it with the developers at PAX East. We did like 4-player co-op, and there's that moment where we almost got like 100 hits, and I was telling everyone, get to 100, get to 100,
get to 100. We're capturing right now. Come on.
It was, I mean, that was a lot of fun. Like, and I'm so glad the final game turned out to be just amazing.
Awesome. And then Borderlands 3, right?
I'm playing this game called Borderlands 3.
How are you still playing this game?
We don't have to spend too much time on this. But
Jordan reviewed Borderlands 3, and Alessandro has played like 100 times more than Jordan has.
Every time I walk past Alessandro's desk back in the day when we still had desks and we're in offices, I'd see him playing, and I was like, why? Why are you doing this to yourself?
Now we can't give him shit though, because he's at home playing it.
According to Epic Games client, I've played up to. I'm really looking at it right now. Actually, I've played up to 12 days. It says.
That's too much.
That's too much.
Just really quickly. I just want to say that I admit the story is not great. I think it has some really weird like choices in humor. I can say it is clearly the Family Guy of video games, as far as like, what it tries to do with pop culture, and like, trying to make some, cute jokes with like, to movies or whatever. But the shooting and the loot drive is just, it's great. Like, that's why I keep coming back to it.
It's
I agree with you, but like what are you doing? Like, what content are you playing? Like, are you just grinding with
there's
new
4
characters?
There's 4 characters, and I have to get them all to like a top level so I can try to get as much loot as I can. So it's I'm already maxed out with Flack, who's the last character. So every other character is already max level at this point, but except Flack. So
Well, I mean, you do you, man. As long as it makes you happy, I'm all for it.
I am doing me. I'm playing 12. I played 12 days worth of Borderlands 3.
288 hours.
Right.
I think that's the math. Yeah.
Something like that.
That is. Let's just move on.
I say we can move on. You guys wanted to press this.
I know that's our fault.
So I have been playing loads of Persona 5 Royale. Damn. Fantastic game. Takes a game that was exceptional and pretty much makes it perfect, I think. Absolutely loving it. And then I'm rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender because
That's also perfect.
it's perfect as well, yeah. And I've seen that show many times, and I feel like I've gone and recommended it to enough people now that I'm like, I should put my money where my mouth is and also watch it again.
So have you made Chastity watch it? Like, she hadn't watched it last I spoke to her.
Is watching it. I think once Lucy returns, she'll talk about it as well because she's currently watching it. I think there's the plan to do a spoiler cast with me, you, Lucy, and Chastity. Oh, Callie. Callie,
yeah. Callie is the first one who's like, "Hey, look, this shit's perfect."
It's perfect. It's perfect. It is. So we'll do that. But yeah, it is fantastic. Beyond that, I've been mainly focusing on Play for All, which leads us into the kind of topics of discussion for this week. A lot of stuff has happened over the last week in terms of gaming news. There's been events that have come and gone. The biggest one being the PlayStation 5 reveal event, which was set for Thursday. That's right? Yeah, Thursday. And is now being cancelled. I think it's not as important to talk about in the minutiae of the events that are cancelled more than why it was cancelled. So I think it's a good opportunity to have that discussion and reflect upon that. Obviously, we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. There was the awful events around the brutality towards George Floyd, and the resulting movement that has come out has, for want of a better phrase, swept the nation. But yeah, so the events in gaming are rightly so stepping aside for those discussions to happen. So PlayStation 5 reveal event has been, kind of put on the back burner. I think it feels like I need to insert a question in here to create a discussion. And the only question you can really ask is a bad question, which is, do you think that was the right decision? That's not the question I want to ask, but I just want to throw it to you guys and let you say your piece on what's happening and how you feel about it and why you think it's important, because there might be some people who are listening to this that we hope and we know that the people that listen to this podcast are people that support and have open minds and are very welcoming, have open hearts to this stuff. But there might be a person who doesn't understand what's going on. So for those people, say your pieces and how do you feel about this, what's going on, and the fact that these companies are being vocal? What's it like to finally see a lot of these companies step out and be like, yeah, this is important to us?
Well, I mean, it's basically just like a culmination of the perfect storm, like all of these feelings and emotions. Like, it's not like, oh, all of a sudden let's care about Black Lives Matter. Like, there have been protests, there have been people speaking out about it, there have been people of color and specifically Black people talking about this in our industry and other industries for years and years, long before me. Like, I'm the youngest one here. I'm 26. Like, my rage hasn't like festered to like the quiet anger yet. I'm not old enough yet for that to have happened. But just given the fact that something like this could have happened while everyone's stuck at home because of COVID-19, while Trump is president, while it's the summer, so it's really like hot. It's like all of these things have kind of like boiled together to create this like boiling point, to the extent that people are like, okay, we need to take stock and really look at this. And I would have liked if we could have like just taken stock and been like, we should actually talk about these issues and come up with solutions without another Black person being shot by a police officer. But here we are, the conversation is happening again. It's a good conversation to have. I feel like there is an easy like answer to whether or not this was a good step to take. I hope that the people listening to this kind of agree that this was a good step to take. But at the very least, like the conversation is happening, and it's a conversation that we've had a dozen times before. And honestly, I'm just worried that it's going to be a conversation that we're going to have dozens of times in the future. But I hope I'm wrong.
If I may, just a common sentiment I saw was that a lot of people were sort of looking forward to the event as a sort of like a break from like a lot of what's been happening. Just that even before this, like what happened with George Floyd. On one end, I can understand that sort of mindset, but at the same time, this isn't the time for escapism. This is a time where everyone needs to listen, to people that really need to be heard. And I do appreciate that PlayStation, Sony decided that this event wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time to do this event, and but at the same time, I do feel like for the audience in general, I do feel like it's important for as Jordan said, just to listen to the people, listen to the communities, like of people that have been trying to be heard, just trying to have their voice in the community as well. So that on one end, that's why I really appreciate just the fact that we're just last few days we're trying to sort of prop up people like within our the games industry, like writers of color, content creators of color, like Khalif Adams from Spawn on Me, and Blessing from Kind of Funny, who's just been fantastic. It's been really great seeing him sort of blow up and really make a name for himself. And even you, Jordan, you've really you've been here for 2 years. You've been just a fantastic addition to the team. And I think it's important for people to recognize that there are people of of a certain perspective that that have a voice, and that perspective is needed, and that perspective is necessary, and that's something that people need to sort of listen more to. So that's kind of what I've been feeling for the last few days, if that makes sense. So
when Tam and I kicked off the Play for All event on Monday, and we had the stream where we got a really sudden shift towards to support Black Lives Matter with the Play for All event, which I'm more than happy that we're doing. Let's do this. This is like invigorating for us to make that move for donations and all that. And it was a little weird though, because I was actually down here in Oakland when I got the Slack message saying, hey, we're shifting. We want to have you on, talk about these issues live on air. And I'm like, I think I can articulate that and reason with the audience that why we are making the shift and why it makes sense, and why we should partake in the fight for Black justice. And we say this many times, like Tam and I are non-Black people of color, so that's an important perspective to internalize for us, because we like the term ally we shouldn't need to say that. We should already be allies by default, but we need to turn that into okay, yes, we agree that Black justice is a thing that needs to be fought for, but we need to turn that into action. So there's a lot of ways to support, monetarily, with bail funds for people who are protesting, giving to Black Lives Matter, because that's an actual organized movement. That's you'll see a lot of bad actors co-opting that Black Lives Matter as it's just a bunch of it's not organized, it's just people trying to cause chaos. Nah, it's an organized movement, and they're making changes. And I say this all the time too, is that if you I will not even say it, but all lives won't matter until Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
Everyone's been making, like, a lot of good people have been making the analogy is that, like, you know, if you go to a doctor and you have a broken bone, you know, the doctor's not going to look at all your bones. You're going to look at the one that needs attention, that one that's hurting. Like, yes, of course, all of your bones matter. Yes, that is a given. No one needs to say that. Pay attention to the one that is hurting and support, like, make sure that you make things right there. So that's how people should feel about Black Lives Matter. I know the After Dark audience is they're very good people, and like they're very receptive to us, but I just want to make sure that the folks who do listen to After Dark understand one, where we stand, of course, but also two, if they have any hesitancy in supporting Black Lives Matter and the protests that have happened in 50 states. When was the last time that something happened in all 50 states at one time? Globally too. You see it all around the globe, is that people are protesting, taking to the streets, and there's a reason why that's happening. And I hope that everyone who listens to this podcast can get behind that. You know, we're obviously doing a fundraiser, but and we're trying to use our platform to draw attention, and that's really important. And I hope that, you know, it doesn't stop at donations. It you know, internalize what you're learning, and take that and continue that. And then for us, like, you know, obviously, like, white people, y'all need to keep y'all folks in check and let them know, like, what your role is in this. Like, this isn't, Black people shouldn't have to be fighting on their own for this. And then, like, even like for people of color, like, listen, older Filipinos can be racist as fuck. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Like, an older generation has internalized colonialism in a big way, and it's a big problem. And I think we need to realize that, you know, people of color can be racist towards Black people too, and it's a reality we need to face. And for us who are obviously, like, want to fight against that, we need to take that into our own communities. Like, we need to communicate that to our own people as well, to get them on board, to change their minds, to make them realize that this is something that they should be fighting for too, and not to be racist as shit. Like, that's, like, it's easy, but it's very hard to get through to some people. And, like, I need to do that. Like, I text my friends. I'm having conversations with, like, my mom and my other parents about this, like, because I got texts like, "Why are you down at the protests?" I'm like, because, like, this is some shit we need to do.
It's
Like,
important.
why are you pressing me on this? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It hurts, dude. Like, I mean, like, what? Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a generation of, it's the same within, like, not Pakistani, Pakistani and, like, Muslim communities as well, where it's like, because you're not the target, they don't feel, a lot of people may not feel the need to get involved.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that have situations that are similar with family members or friends, and often it just takes you to remind them of the smaller, the discrimination that they might have had, or their parents might have spoken about in their lives, that is a fraction of what is happening to Black people right now. Like, Muslims, for example, have gone through some stuff themselves, and I found it powerful in speaking to my friends and family, just reminding them of how they felt in a moment when someone was screaming terrorist at them as they walk down the street, in the way that I have had. That pain that you felt, imagine if that wasn't just a thing that you could walk away from and it stuck with you for maybe a few days. Imagine if that moment escalated every single time and your life was on the line. And that's kind of what has helped break through to some people. And it's important for, even if you're not colored, to remember that those moments of danger that you feel and may have felt in your life, you know, the real ones, they pop up in your mind and they horrify you. Like, when you remember those circumstances and the context around it, they can make you feel like in trouble again. Imagine if that was your every single day. If that was your moment, the moment you woke to the moment you slept, every single day, you had to prepare yourself to expect one of those every day. That's no way to live, man. And you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the people around you to stand up and say something. And yeah, it's just essential. It's not a thing that you should be thinking about doing. You just need to do, and that's made the big reason why we not introduced, but we felt it was necessary to have the Black Lives Matter kind of fundraiser element to Play for All. It was something that came together very, very quickly, but it was not a discussion. It wasn't whether we should do this. It was how can we do this as quickly as possible. And the result is what you're getting now. It's not as elegant as everything as we would perhaps want it to be. We're still kind of pivoting on things. We're introducing, we started with one donation method and then we had to kind of fold in another one on top so we could actually track the thing. The money is still all going to Black Lives Matter and now we can track it. So, and the articles that are coming together very last minute, like Jordan, bless him, he worked until like 9 p.m. to kind of get that article up, because the 9
I
p.m.
do what I gotta do, Tam. I do what I gotta do.
I mean, like I was there with you trying to make sure. I was like, please, I'm sorry. Like I felt bad because it was on a day that we told everyone, don't write, don't work, do not do anything. All we're going to do today is amplify Black voices, and that's what we tried to do. But in order to do that, the day before we had to prepare an article to show that, to show people that we're going to do that and give people something to read. And Jordan took point on that. And then the follow-up article where we've been inviting people to reach out to us on Twitter and suggest names of Black creators and voices that we could highlight. And then we put them all in a separate article. That's on site as well. And you should seek it out and follow those people, watch their streams. They all have valuable, unique perspectives. But that came together very, not last minute, but in a rush. But that's kind of what Play for All has been, and it's what it's needed to be. And we're going to continue to push that over the coming 6 weeks and beyond. I think the one thing that's important to note is like GameSpot as a team is diverse. I think you guys feel the same way, where this matters to every single one of us, and we will continue to push on this and highlight how important it is for us to amplify these Black voices and support Black voices and members of the community and Black people as a whole.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to like Black people in the industry, like obviously our audience is going to be gravitating towards gaming, and there are a lot of Black voices in gaming who have been doing this for a very long time, and I've been following them because, I mean, because they're great creators, but they all like having my timeline full with all these perspectives over time gives you perspective. You learn from just simply following the work. That's like the bare minimum you can do is like listen to them. It might, like, not everything is going to be about race or LGBTQ issues or things like that, but just their perspective on anything else, on games like Death Stranding or on Apex, like Alessandro and Jordan do. Like just listening to their perspective, seeing it and normalizing that, if you haven't already, is like, that's a step everyone should be taking. And that's kind of like why I think it's valuable that, like, okay, yeah, I follow them, but I need to let other folks know that y'all should be following them too. And yeah, over time, it's very much like taught me a lot. And I talked to Khalif Adams about that too, and on Spawn on Me, which y'all should be following as well. That it's very important to diversify your timeline and people you follow, especially like Black women in gaming. Like you got to seek them out too, for all sorts of reasons. But you'll learn a lot and get like valuable perspective on games.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But you got to make sure that you, like, as a caveat, like, make sure that you reach out to these diverse voices in the right way. There's a very unfortunate trend I can really only speak to the gaming industry because it's the one that I know the best, but I'm sure that it extends to others, to profit off of the pain of minorities, especially people of color, especially women, where if you have a game that handles race or has a game that handles gender or anything that could be considered a minority, to let someone of color or a woman or another minority to cover this game for them to provide their perspective, kind of knowing that the article that they will write, though will be insightful, will also be the type of article that, like, the internet being the internet, is going to jump on and is going to get mad clicks and be very popular. It's easy to see how you can use someone's diversity to benefit yourself and kind of still pat yourself on the back by saying, like, oh, I did something good. I allowed this Black voice to speak out about this Black person in the video game. And that's really not the right way to go about it. I always tell people, like, it's much less about diversity as it is about inclusivity. Like, that's one of the things I appreciate most about GameSpot. Like, are there more ways that we could improve our diversity quota? Absolutely. But it is also a site that I joined, and it's not like on the very first day, Tam and Chris like sat down with me and were like, okay, Jordan, how many like Black video games do you want to write about? Like, they didn't just immediately jump on that for me to cover. It's like, cover whatever you want. And if a story presents itself that ties into who you are, we'll support you when you want to pitch it and critique it and offer our feedback, and we'll work through it. And then the article will come out. And that's a good way to handle that situation. And that only comes if you have a lot of people who are diverse, like, on your staff. Like, one of the things that I've kind of like seen that annoys me, like, just a little bit, is the aspect that when giant, huge AAA games come out, like, they only get like 1 or 2 codes given to each outlet. It's always been this way. It will probably continue to always be this way. And they do, I assume they do it this way just to make sure that the game doesn't leak or anything like that. But by only 1 or 2 codes going out to people when it's giant AAA games, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, Last of Us, Cyberpunk, usually the people who are going to review those games are the reviews editor, the managing editor, or the editor-in-chief, the people that the site trusts the most to handle those giant games. And the fact of the matter is, most of those people across our industry are white. Like, Black people don't get very high up in the grand scheme of things when it comes to these websites. So you have to pull in these diverse voices, but then you have to keep them around long enough and promote them long enough so that when a giant game like Last of Us Part 2 or Cyberpunk 2077 comes around, they're in a position to then analyze that game and possibly get something out of it that their white counterparts might not. Am I saying, like, oh, there's every Black person should have reviewed Last of Us? Like, no, obviously not. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, like, just looking at Twitter, you can see that a majority of the people reviewing that game are white. So a majority of the reviews will be from a white perspective, which maybe won't matter. Maybe Last of Us Part 2 doesn't look at race in any conceivable way, shape, or form. But it is something to at least consider, that are we basically setting ourselves up for failure if we just have the same core group of people reviewing the same games over and over and over again? And you have to attract those voices in first. You have to promote them up and give them a chance if you want things to change.
Sure. And
just one thing that I just really think is important is that a lot of these article like features about the Black perspective, they tend to become more relevant with age. Like I noticed that from US Gamer from Jeffrey Russo about Black journalists in the games industry. Like that's especially relevant right now. Like, just thinking about it, like and especially seeing, like, just especially over the last few days, how many, just, the wealth of, sort of Black perspective there is within our industry, like, the amount of writers and content creators there are. And, it is, it's especially frustrating to see that, they haven't been given that opportunity, even though they have the talent, they have the following, they have their own personal following. And, but it's like, again, it's just, in a lot of ways, it just focuses on, like, I guess our system where the big fish tend to get a lot of the attention or whatever. But even, like, for us, like I feel like I can speak for us, like we do think about, like, articles like this, focusing on the Black perspective, or other groups from minority groups, or like I remember one of our last features meetings in the office, like we were pitching around ideas, wasn't necessarily themed around, obviously Black History Month or whatever. It was just in the now. We were thinking about our own experiences now. Like, it was like, just actually an article I thought about, like, I was really trying to get going, but just didn't work out for a variety of reasons, was, what it means for a video game to have a strong Black lead. And, I touched a bit on that, like in the past with a Far Cry article, which got re-promoted the last few days. And as Jordan said, like sometimes there's an article that just sort of picks up, maybe it gets a lot of attention, maybe in some ways you may not expect, but I still feel strongly about that article because it was my experience, and it was an experience that maybe a lot of people really, sort of wouldn't necessarily think of, like when they play a big budget game like that. That's something I think of, and I'm sure that's something a lot of people would think of as well. Like, what's it like playing Far Cry 5 as a Black character? And that made me feel very anxious. And honestly, after just seeing how things went last 2 years, I feel like I was on the money with that article. Like, it was just, it's a trip. Like, just seeing how things have turned out. And I do feel like one of the greatest things about video games, not only the fact that obviously it's it's about bringing people together, but the level of escapism it can offer. But at the same time, as I said earlier, it's important just to listen to different perspectives on the escapism that we sort of like dive into, like because I remember with Cyberpunk, like people showed concerns about how they portrayed people of color in that game, and I previewed the game and I felt the same way too. Like, is this like, is it doing the right thing? Like, I understand it's an extrapolation of our current times, but I mean, obviously things aren't, it's important to have like a different perspective in the making of the games as well. And I wish developers would keep that in mind, but I feel like the only way to do that is to have more people of color, women especially, more women especially, to be able to have their experiences with the games that we spend so much time with, heard. And just, and again, like for our listeners, like our desire to have more of these sort of experiences is there. It's just again, just it's very tricky trying to be able to bring in enough people just to find the right opportunities to do it. So yeah,
I mean,
it's
I was saying this just recently in light of, this is very inside baseball, but in light of a certain tweet, I will say straight up that I think that at least how I feel is at the root of the problem, or one of the roots of the problem, is that we don't have Black and people of color in decision-making positions. Now, I'm not saying that we should be made bosses straight up. I'm not saying that we need to be
Please
executives.
Don't make me a boss.
Yeah, I'm just like saying, yo, I can barely handle my shit. Please don't make me in charge of other people's shit. But what I'm trying to say with that is that we see a lot of, like, as well-intentioned as it might be, we see messages fucked up all the time at its core, and people get dragged for them, and they face the consequences because of that. And the root of the problem is that you don't have people with perspective in decision-making positions. And like I said, I don't want to be a boss, but what I mean by that is that we need to be in on those conversations. We need to be able to influence how those things are communicated, so y'all don't fuck it up, and you come from a genuine place, rather than being like, oh, I'm white, I'm so ignorant, please educate me. Like, no, that's you shouldn't be saying that, bro. Like, you should be proactive in that.
Yeah.
And we can be the ones to tell you, like, no, don't say that, do this first. All right,
Yeah.
have this, like, think about this first. And if we're in the room with those conversations, then it would do them a lot of favors, man.
It's like a 30-second conversation. Like, just be
Right.
like, hey, is this a good idea to do? We'll look at it and be like, no. Or, yeah, sure, you can probably do that.
I think the the only good can come from surrounding yourself with unique perspectives that you don't have. There is no downside to it. You learn and you open your mind up to different ways of thinking. And that extends to everything, like not just decisions that need to be made. Whether you're on a corporate ladder and you're thinking about whether a tweet should or shouldn't go out, that it doesn't just benefit that. It's you as a gamer. We want to try and make this applicable to our audience, which are people that love games. There's probably things happening in the games that you play on a day-to-day basis that you just have no clue about. And by surrounding yourself, following, speaking to, reading the work of people who have unique voices that come from unique perspectives, the only thing you're doing is making yourself smarter, finding new nuances to games that you probably already have played, know, love, dislike, whatever it may be, and then improving games as a whole. The upside of supporting colored people, black voices, non-black people of color voices, is everything gets better. Everything. And the way you do that is by surrounding yourself with them and speaking to them and pushing them forward, letting them lead the way. And that's what Play for All is about. That's what Black Lives Matter is about. And that's what we want to support. And you can do that in so many ways. You can read Jordan's articles where there's literature on how you can educate yourself about the struggles that Black people face. And there's also links there to Black creators. Everything you need is, not everything, but a lot of what you need is there. The springboard is there for you to jump off of. Use it. And then you can help you, please. And you can go to bit.ly/GS-BLM and donate. That's our Black Lives Matter donation link. We're going to be using it, throughout this 6 weeks. You don't have to use our one. If there's another one, go and find it and use it. We're not saying we're not getting anything out of this. Ultimately, our goal is to support the cause. If you want to go directly to them and not use our bit.ly link, all that we're doing is tracking it through that, so we know. But go and just support the cause, support the movement, and trust us. Like Michael said, I'm not a person, I'm not a black person, I'm a person of color, same with I am. But everything that Alessandro has said today, everything that Jordan has said today, we all 100% agree with, we're all back. And they have been saying things get better if you support those voices. So do that. Having said that, I think we're going to end the podcast here. Ordinarily, we would have a listener questions sections. We do have questions from the audience, and they're great, and they've been sent in through to After Dark Podcast at GameSpot.com, and also on our Discord channel server. If you want to get access, hit myself up, or Chaim, or Jake, or Jean-Luc, or anyone else that is on the GameSpot team, and we can get you in. They are of a certain tone, though. The tone being they're lighthearted. Some of them, they, talk about what stuff you like outside of games, and very much not in line with the tone of what's happening right now. So I think it is worth pushing those questions to next week, so we can leave you with the message that you should support Black Lives Matter. You should read up on the perspectives that are important, and do your best to educate yourself, support those people, and do the same for the people around you. Jordan, where can people find you on Twitter?
They can find me at JMRAMEE for basically just a bunch of stupid anime and Apex Legend shit.
Chaim, where you at and what you got?
You could find me and all of my bullshit at Michael P. Chaim on Twitter. And yeah, engage with the things I say or do or don't, because I get nervous when people follow me, because then I'll be like, oh, damn, now I gotta shit. Like, it makes me nervous. But hey, I appreciate it. But yeah, follow all of us. We're all doing great work. Play for All is popping off, and a lot of people are putting a lot of time and effort into those things, and just everything on site. Like, everyone's putting in a lot of good work. So, it's not about me. Follow GameSpot and all the people around us, and check out that article that Jordan and all of us pitched in to see, check out those perspectives that you may not have had otherwise.
Alessandro, where can people find you? What you got?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at afilari, AFILLARI. I basically share some of my articles, but also the great articles from other outlets as well. And I should also share a lot of political stuff. So if that gets on your nerves, too bad. So it's like I said, it's important for people to listen to people that aren't like them. That perspective is important, and that's more than ever, especially. So we also have, like Michael said, we have Play for All happening with our charity event. I've been helping Timur schedule some stuff for that. We've got some really cool stuff happening like the next few weeks. So I can tell you it's going to be pretty dope. And I'm looking forward to the final, whatever we're doing with Final Fantasy, whatever in the coming weeks. So,
Awesome.
yes. Yeah, that's it.
You can find me on Twitter at TimurH. Currently working on Play for All, so please watch and support Black Lives Matter. Donate if you can. And we're also raising money for healthcare workers fighting COVID relief. And the links to support those are on our sites. We will have regular charity streams every day, unless there's a press conference that day, but usually between 12 and 2 PT. It's fun stuff. All the money going towards good causes, so please watch. And we'll catch you again next week. Goodbye.
Peace.
Bye.